Well, welcome to Age Friendly, the program here, of course, in Thunder Bay at Rogers TV. And we talk about anything and everything to do, any matters that are to do with older adults or seniors in our community. I'm Rebecca Johnson, your host of the program. And I think today you're going to be quite excited. If you're an adult that's at home all by yourself, you're isolated and you don't know who to talk to, we have the answer for you. France Connor is my guest, and she is here on my screen, and she is here from Manotick, which is just outside of Ottawa. And France, welcome to the program, because we have very different backgrounds in behind us, and I'm really delighted to have you here on the program. And we're doing technology, which to me is exciting, and the fact that we can do this in today's environment. You don't actually have to be sitting here, but we have a program, or you have a program, Friendly Voice. You contacted me and said you'd like to talk about it. And I was very excited, and I am, to talk to our community about what the Friendly Voice is. So I'm going to ask you if you could provide us, what is an overview of what Friendly Voice is? We'll start there.
Well, we'll start with thanking you for having us on your show today. A Friendly Voice is a warm line for older adults across Ontario and recently also in the Atlantic provinces, to older adults that are experiencing loneliness and isolation.
So basically, if I can do what? How do I get in touch, or what do I do for Friendly Voice?
Well, you can do one of two things. You could
Mhm.
join us by being a volunteer. We do accept volunteers from 18 and older. As long as you're able to provide a criminal records check, you can be a volunteer. Or you can also be a caller. Older adults, 55 and older, can access our phone line 7 days a week,
Mhm.
365 days of the year. We're open all of the holidays because those tend to be sometimes, not a joyful time for some people. So we make ourselves available to be able to provide some friendly conversation during those difficult times, those holidays. And so we operate from 8 in the morning until 10 at night based on Eastern time, because I know you're in a different time zone than us. So just
Right.
did a little bit of a difference, but we are available 7 days a week from 8 in the morning until 10 at night.
You talk about volunteers, but people in the community, like here, right here in Thunder Bay and in our region, because we aren't, our program Age Friendly airs in the region. So within that, you could be anywhere and actually be able to phone into the program.
Exactly. Because we serve all of Ontario, and actually one of our grants was actually focused on bringing awareness to the Northern Ontario, which
Mhm.
does include Thunder Bay. So you can access us from anywhere, and it's a free service. So, we allow people to call 3 times a day. And you could be speaking to anyone, any volunteer across Canada, because our volunteers are across Canada.
One of the things, France, I'd like to just talk about the fact that it's not a referral service, it's not a crisis line, it's a conversation.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
We also try to alleviate some of the loneliness and isolation that people might be experiencing by connecting them to community programs or resources that might keep them either physically or socially active. Because there's been studies shown that the more that we remain active socially and physically,
Mhm.
it prolongs, you know, our life.
Right. Well, that's so very important. That's why I mentioned at the start of the program. If you're isolated and you're sitting at home and you have nobody to talk to for whatever reason, then this is an opportunity to actually literally pick up the phone and talk to somebody. What do you talk about?
Good question, because it does vary
Yeah.
depending on who you speak with. There are people that connect really well with certain volunteers and not so much others. So their conversations might be a little bit more in depth about, personal family history or just general conversation about the weather, favorite TV shows, movies, music, or things that they've done in the past, their first jobs. Some people really enjoy talking about their careers throughout their life. So we talk about various topics. It's not limited to certain things.
And does the person that's a volunteer that's actually, answering the telephone have to have any kind of experience themselves? And then I'd like to talk a little bit about the training that you have to offer people, or you do offer them.
Yes. So no one, you can come in without any experience. We do ask that you have some sort of experience with seniors, although people, have grown up with grandparents, or have, interacted with seniors in the community.
Mhm.
But we do provide training as part of our onboarding process. But even throughout the year, we do offer training such as mental health. Um, you know, how do you deal with a challenging call? What do I do if someone is, saying that they're going to take their life? We have ways to transfer the calls directly to the crisis line or 988 if we need to. But we're also looking at training, LGBTQ2SA plus perspectives, Indigenous perspectives, dementia care. So these are all trainings that we have lined up for this coming year for our volunteers.
And it's really, really important that you have that training because you never know exactly what somebody's going to talk about and say so that you can be prepared for whatever that happens to be.
Yes. Active listening is a big part of it as well. People think that they do listen well and everything, but once you start conversing with people over the telephone, I think people take a step back and think, "Oh, maybe I'm not so good as I thought I was." But it comes with practice as well.
Sure.
Sometimes having to set boundaries isn't easy either. When people are inappropriate or um, I know that people might call out of frustration with things that are happening within, their neighbors or family situations and can call and vent a little bit. But, sometimes if they're yelling, sometimes we do have to remind them that, we're here to listen and if they could just use, a more calming tone, it will, bring the conversation along a little bit further.
Right. You had mentioned about the fact that somebody could call 3 times a day. So, I'm just saying morning, noon, and night. But
Yes.
if I really want to talk to somebody, is that something that happens a lot?
So we do have people that call every day, 3 times a day.
Mm.
We will notice that sometimes if they're calling a little more frequently, it's because they might be experiencing a difficult time. There might be something
Mhm.
going on in their life where they do need a little bit of extra support. So in those times, we still take their call, but we just try to reduce it to maybe only, a 10-minute conversation because we do allow up to 30 minutes per conversation, per call.
30 minutes. So I can get to talk to one of your volunteers for 30 minutes 3 times a day.
Correct.
Would it always be the same volunteer? No, not necessarily. I'm just thinking out loud. I don't anticipate that it would be, but it could be.
It could be. However, we'd really try to encourage the 3 calls a day because it allows them to break up their day, first of all, but it also allows them to connect with multiple volunteers. So they get to build relationships, friendships per se,
Mhm.
with multiple people, which, broadens their friend group.
Right. And did do you ever see something like that actually evolving into a friendship, or no? It's really, somebody that's calling in, and then you have the volunteer that's responding.
We try to keep it a very, it's a
Yeah.
phone, it's a warm line. But with what's shared over the telephone, we really try to keep it over the telephone. We don't meet in person. Also, some volunteers like to keep their anonymity, for safety reasons,
Hmm.
because we don't know about who's calling in. I mean, other than
No.
what, we're told, right? Because we don't have access to their medical history or anything like that. So
No.
we only get what they tell us. So it's better for us to kind of keep our anonymity a bit.
Okay. Well, we'll stop here for a moment and come back in a few minutes with France Connor from Friendly Voice. Well, welcome back to Age Friendly. We're talking to France Connor, who is here from just outside of Ottawa, and we're talking about a program called Friendly Voice. So if you weren't listening for the first segment, you'll certainly enjoy this one when we talk about if you wanted to volunteer. And you have what, about 120 some odd volunteers?
Currently 128, and we're continuing to onboard. So we have some that are just in the onboarding phase.
That's a lot of volunteers, Fran. So kudos to your organization. But how, like, we talked a little bit about that, but I think it's important for, if you were interested, to join the 128. How do you go about doing that? And then what kind of training are you providing specifically?
Sure, good question.
Yeah.
Well, first, we ask that you just visit our website and complete a volunteer application form there. That's the first step. Once we receive your application, then you'll receive a welcome email that outlines the following steps. So the first step, there is a screener call. So there are a series of questions that are asked to make sure that you qualify to be a volunteer. Secondly, then there's an interview. It's more or less of a meet and greet because we don't get the opportunity to meet in person because our volunteers, again, are across Canada. We do a meet and greet kind of over Zoom, and we inform you a bit more about the program, how it works. We get to know you a little bit, and then part one training is broken down into certain modules. So during that time, we go over active listening, empathy, grief through loss, setting boundaries. Of course, you're putting me on the spot here. I can't think of them all.
A number of them. Yep.
A number of them. And then
Yeah.
part two, and that's probably approximately 3 hours. And then part two is again approximately 3 hours. And during that time, it's a shadowing shift. So it's a one-on-one virtual training with one of the volunteer supervisors. And at that time, they would observe the volunteer supervisor take a call, and then the volunteers take calls. And the reason for that is so they have support in their initial calls. So if they have any questions that might arise, because you don't really know what to expect unless you're actually doing it yourself.
Right.
So there's someone there to answer those questions or to help if you get someone that's a bit challenging for your first calls, they're there to help you and coach you through that.
One of the things is when you become a volunteer, one never, as you said, you never know what's going to happen at the other end of the line. But do you have an update every once in a while with your volunteers and really talk to them about what they might have a specific need to be able to deal with it with one of the individuals that call in?
Well, so there's one of two things. We do have monthly meetings where, we go over our housekeeping things, and then at
Right.
the end, it's an open conversation. So if there's one volunteer that finds one caller in particular really challenging or difficult, they'll ask the group, and then someone might say, "Oh, I've tried this, and this I find really helps." So they do support each other. And we also are really big on debriefing because debriefing is very, very important
Right. Yeah.
to avoid burnout, and to keep it enjoyable. So we're really big on debriefing. So if someone does get a call where after they're done that call and they're thinking, someone's just not sitting well with me, and
Yeah.
so they'll reach out to me and then we'll talk about it. A lot of the time they just need the support or the reassurance that they've dealt with it appropriately, and
Hmm.
then they feel a bit better. Because again, too, we try not to give advice, and sometimes that can be a little bit tricky. So
Yeah.
because what's good for one person may not be good for another. So, they do their best to be supportive and not provide advice, but sometimes they'll call and say, "Oh my gosh, I think I gave someone advice." It's okay. It's okay.
But it's really a conversation, just like you and I are having here today. What is an age that if you were volunteering, what would be the age that you would start at?
Well, we accept volunteers anywhere
Oh
from 18, and I think we have a volunteer in her 80s, if I'm not mistaken.
gosh. Oh wow. So you can be any age. It doesn't matter. All right. Now let's switch this for a second, and be the person that's calling in. You have a lot of people on your list that you have, that want a conversation or a friendly voice. So, and I understand you have some already from Thunder Bay that have already signed up and call your number,
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
which that's cool. I think that's really interesting because when you mentioned that when we were talking before the program, to think that there already are people in Thunder Bay so now we can expand it because we'll identify this. But is there a certain age you have to be to phone in? Like you can't be
So,
18 I wouldn't
no,
think, no.
no. So we do ask that the criteria for our phone line is 55 plus.
Okay. And if for 55, all right. And we have a little bit of life experience to be able to deal with the situation, I would think as well, when you are a little bit older like that. Yeah, okay. Now, when you get the phone call, do you have the volunteers don't have to be in an office, they could be anywhere.
They can be, well, we ask that they do it from the comforts of their home in a
Oh, all
quiet
right.
place, just without distractions or interruptions, and
Yeah.
also for confidentiality reasons as well.
Right. And you said that, So I'm interested in if, and I don't mean to put you on the spot about this, and if you don't have anything, that's fine. But is there a couple of examples you can give of actual conversations and what I'm phoning to the friendly voice. Where, what would I be talking about? I'm just curious.
Are you a new caller? If you're a new caller, then I'll try to find out a little bit more about you. Where are you calling from? I'm in Ottawa. Where are you? Do you have any interests? Family traditions, recipes. I'll ask what the weather's like there, and we just kind of it just kind of unfolds naturally.
And for 30 minutes, that's a fair amount of time to talk to somebody, I think, and you can get to meet them or talk about all of the different things that they're involved in, etc. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we have one lady who calls and she just wants to know what you had for breakfast and what your plans are for the day. And that's it. So literally her calls are maybe 2 to 3 minutes, but she calls every morning just to see what the volunteer had for breakfast and what their plans are for the day.
And that's all right for her. That satisfies a need for her to have a conversation with somebody. Do you find, or I don't know what you do for statistics, but do you find that the people that are calling in actually are lonely or all by themselves, or is it people that have families?
A
What
little
what
bit of
kind?
A little bit
Go
of
ahead.
both. A little bit of both.
All right.
We have some people that live with their adult children, but the adult children are at work during the day,
Mm-hmm.
or they're busy taking care of their own family, so they don't want to be a burden, so they call us. Um, we have people that are truly alone. Their circle of friends has decreased as they've aged, and or they've lost their partner or spouse, and they really do feel like they are lonely. And mind you, COVID didn't help either in those
No,
in during that
no.
time. So it has created, and I think people are still having difficulty, getting out and socializing.
I totally agree with you, and certainly things that I'm doing here in Thunder Bay indicate that that they haven't really moved beyond COVID and trying to really get back into the community in whatever way that happens to be. So the friendly voice can certainly add to that for them. Yeah.
Yes.
We're just going to finish this segment again, and then I'd like to talk a little bit about in the next segment, France, a little bit about how you're funded, not for profit, and how you manage within your office and things like that. So if we could we'll finish off right now, but come back and France Connor from A Friendly Voice is our program today, and hopefully that you're enjoying it. And if you're an isolated individual in our community, I hope that you're listening and that you're going to pick up the phone and phone the number that is on the screen for the program. Age Friendly, here we are back again with France Connor, who is here on screen from Ottawa, or close to Ottawa, from Manotick, and she's talking about A Friendly Voice, and it's a program that you might be interested in and actually picking up the phone, and if you wanted to talk to somebody in France. Thanks for coming and all the way from Ottawa, and even if it is through virtually and all the rest of it. But one of the things I'd be interested in is you're a not-profit organization, and how do you fund yourselves? I mean, how do you manage you have staff? I mean, you must have a few staff members or something. How do you do that?
Well, we are not for profit.
Hmm.
So Rural Ottawa Sales Support Services is the organization that started A Friendly Voice,
Right.
and they started by applying for a grant through the Ontario Trillium Foundation, a startup grant, and so they received that 3-year funding in 2018. So we launched in December of 2018. When that funding lapsed, we continue to apply for grants in order for it to maintain accessible and free. So our grant was from Employment and Social Development Canada, the Scaling Up for Seniors grant. That grant allowed us to expand out to the Atlantic provinces. They also provide a New Horizons for Seniors program, and that funding allowed us to expand and bring awareness to Northern Ontario, which includes Thunder Bay. And
Right.
we're also funded by the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibilities through the Seniors Community Grant. So we're always applying for large sums, small sums. It varies. We're always applying, and people are also able to donate.
Your charity status, so you can get a receipt for that if you choose to do as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, with the program, do you see it expanding? Like you're in Ontario and the Atlantic provinces, is it something that you're looking at expanding right across the country?
It is, it is. It took us 5 years to grow in Ontario, and we continue to grow in Ontario, but to get where we are today and then bring in the Atlantic provinces, we're guessing another 5 years of growing it in those provinces. And our goal is eventually, yes, to be national.
It's an exciting venture. Now, do you have staff that assist you yourself? Because I know that you're the program manager.
I am the manager. We do have an outreach coordinator and we have 2 volunteer supervisors. That's all we have for paid staff. And basically the line is manned by volunteers.
Which is wonderful to be able to have that. And do you need any special equipment that you have? Like if you're talking on the phone, but do you need any special equipment? So if I was phoning into the number, do I need anything, or it's just a phone I need?
So if you're phoning in, all you need is a phone. The volunteers do need a computer to be able to take calls. So we can take calls through the computer. We provide them with the email address and the passwords to access the phone system. So basically, they sign in about 5 to 10 minutes prior to their shift starting, and then they sign out at the end of their shift. So we have volunteers that do one shift per week of 2 to 3 hours a shift.
So that could be up to, if it's 2 hours, that could be 4 phone calls then.
It could be.
Right, right.
Yes.
Totally different related subjects, I'm sure, is within that.
Yes, there's various people that call with different things to talk about.
Yeah.
Sometimes people call and just they don't have anyone to talk about their aches and pains with,
Mhm.
so we're here to listen.
I did go on your website before the program because I wanted to know, you and I had chatted, but I also wanted to know what the website had, and it's got some really good information. So, and it's really basically, I just typed in friendly voice and it came up. So it wasn't, I didn't have to do anything fancy on to get it. But one of the things that I found interesting, and I quote it, it says, keeping seniors socially healthy. That's what you're really trying to do. And I think that that's so important in today's environment that we, as you've mentioned and we've mentioned about the COVID, we came out of that, it's trying to get you active again. So keeping seniors socially healthy is very important.
Yes, so we try for not everyone wants to be out in the community and socially engaged, but us we can provide the friendly conversation. But some people need a little bit more than that. They need to be active, in other programs or things. So we do try to keep them connected to programs or resources within, if they're calling from Thunder Bay, we'll try to find them resources or programs that might be beneficial to them in their communities.
Right. One of the other quotes that I take from your website is a friendly voice is there to talk with you. And that to me it really sums up what the program is. It's a voice at the other end of the phone. You might never see or know who that person is, but they're there to talk with you about whatever you want to talk about. And that's so really important for so many people in today's environment.
Yes. And we also, people that want to provide their mailing address and their birth dates, at Christmas time, we will send a Christmas card. At their birthdays, when it's their birthdays, we do add, a little birthday card in the mail for them, because sometimes people that are lonely don't receive any mail
Yeah.
or birthday wishes or anything like that. So we try to go a little bit above and add that little touch of warmth.
Right, which is really, that is so important. Do you know there are very few people, it seems to me, in today's environment get anything in Canada Mail anymore. That and when you do, it's like a real present. Like it means a lot to people.
It does. I have some of our regular callers. I call them regulars because, they've been calling for well
Mhm.
over a year and they call almost daily. They keep our cards. They'll say, they're on my coffee table. Over the
Right.
years, they've just kept them because they do treasure them. They really do add a lot of value to them.
So what is the phone number, France? I think it's important. It'll be on the screen, but I want you to, to actually tell people if we could do it a couple of times so that people could write
Yes.
it down. Go ahead.
Yes. So the toll-free number is 1-855-892-9992.
So it's
Again,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, again, it's 1-855-892-9992.
And you're available 8 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, 7 days a week.
Yes.
Well, we'll conclude on that, France. Thank you very much for coming on the program today. It's a great program, and I think it will. I'm sure that you're going to get more calls from Thunder Bay, and I appreciate that very much, that you've informed us about the program, A Friendly Voice. And so now we're going to turn our program over to Linda DePiro for our 1 minute of exercise. So get ready. If you're just sitting there, I'm not sure exactly what Linda's going to be showing us today, but I hopefully you'll take a part in her 1 minute of exercise. France, again, thanks so very much, and all the best wishes with the Friendly Voice. We'll look forward to hearing from you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Linda DePiro. Here is an effective exercise technique to help ease knee pain or knee discomfort. So sitting upright in a sturdy chair, you're going to make a fist and you're going to use these knuckles, the bony knuckles, to massage and palpate the fascia tissue above, to the side, and below the knee, avoiding the kneecap, as there's a bursa sac in there, that it serves a purpose of protection, so we don't want to go into that. So start with the lower part of the quad muscle, which is quite thick. You can apply the pressure as accordingly. Coming down here, it might be a little bit more tender, and into the shin. And then I'm going to change to using my fingers, kind of palpating, digging in, kneading, right? And you can knead behind the knee as well, getting into the lower part of the hamstring, upper part of the calf muscle. And then using a different texture, these little soft balls, making little circles right on top, to the side, and the shin, which just gives you a little different feeling. And you can also squeeze behind, taking a hold of the shin here, and the foot I want you to place in a flat dorsiflexion. Windshield wiping, internal, external rotation at the ankle will encourage a little bit more synovial fluid. It feels a little awkward to do, but it's a very good movement. And the longer you can do this, the better. And you will notice that as you're holding the shin, you can feel with your hands the muscles and activity happening in the shin. So moving it a little bit more side to side, then stand up. Well, you'll feel the difference right away. Add a couple knee bends. This side feels so energized, ready to take on the day. So anytime you feel your knees a little cranky, try this. See you next time.